I recently went on a history road trip of Scotland, and some of the things I saw will stay with me forever. From starting in Edinburgh and heading up into the Highlands, the landscape felt alive and heavy with memory. Every hill, every ruin, every echo through stone walls holding secrets that refused to stay buried. There were moments on this trip, walking through a place where betrayal once unfolded, standing in the exact spot a life ended, that made me feel like time had folded in on itself. Like I could almost hear the past whispering just out of reach. So let me take you with me on this journey and uncover the history together. We're starting our trip in the Palace of Holyroodhouse in Edinburgh. This building is regal, beautiful, the official residence of the monarch in Scotland. But this place has seen some serious things. In the 1500s, Mary Queen of Scots was living here with her husband, Lord Darnley. Their marriage was already cracking, a tangle of jealousy, politics and power. But everything exploded on the night of March the 9th, 1566. Mary was having supper in her private rooms late at night, a small candlelit affair tucked away behind heavy doors. With her was her closest friend and secretary, David Rizzio, when suddenly a group of armed men burst into the room. They claimed Rizzio had too much sway over the Queen, some even whispered that he and Mary were lovers. What happened next was chaos. Rizzio was dragged from the table, and the legend says he clung to Mary's skirts, begging for protection. The men stabbed him 56 times. This is the exact spot his body was dumped, though the bloodstains, as you can imagine, are a modern addition. The Queen was pregnant at the time, surrounded by men who just murdered her best friend in front of her. It's unimaginable, but being here in these rooms really brought that real history to life. We were also given special access into the royal drawing room, which is usually closed to the public, as it is still used to receive royals and politicians from around the world. Walk a little farther and you reach the long gallery. It stretches on and on, lined with portraits of Scottish kings, some real, some semi-mythical, painted to fill gaps in history with faces that were never really known. Walking through these beautiful rooms of Holyroodhouse really brought the history to life. Every painting, every royal gem, every bed, a reminder of the real people who've walked these corridors. After the chaos at Holyroodhouse and the murder of her friend, Mary was pregnant, ill and exhausted and fled here to Craigmillar Castle. The castle belonged to her loyal ally and it was meant to be a refuge. Instead, it became the backdrop for one of the darkest conspiracies in Scottish history. The men around her hated her husband, Lord Darnley, jealous, violent, ambitious and increasingly unstable. Here at Craigmillar, they drafted a secret pact, the Craigmillar Bond, which promised to deliver the Queen from her husband. A few months later, their promise came true. Darnley was found dead in the garden of Kirkfield near Edinburgh. The house he was staying in had been blown up, but his body showed no signs of burns or injuries from the blast. He had in fact been strangled in the gardens. And it all traces back to here, to Craigmillar Castle, to the whispered agreement in these stone rooms. When you walk through the ruins now, it's a peaceful, beautiful place. It's hard to imagine what took place here, but you can almost picture Mary standing in the courtyard, her fate closing in, while whispers in the dark quietly shaped the next tragedy of her life.
Portrait then cut this gently from the corner of the mouth up to the ear, on either side, right the way through the skin. That door originally led through, and we don't actually know what's on the other side.
So what an amazing first day. This is really my perfect kind of trip. Like, if I could just spend the rest of my life visiting historical sites day in, day out and just traveling around, like, that is my actual dream in life. And obviously making videos about it as well. So to be invited on this trip is just so amazing. I'm so grateful. I'm here with a group of creators and we are on a Rabbie's tour, and Rabbies are a travel company. So with a Rabbie's tour, the idea is that it is small group tours, so it's not like a huge coach of people like and you're struggling to get around anywhere when you arrive. It's small tours, and the driver is super interactive. They're unscripted and they're really into history or whatever it is as well, so they're really just there to really guide you and take you on the best experience. They've got loads of different itineraries and things as well. So this is a Merry Queen of Scots themed tour in collaboration between Rabbie's and by Jacqueline, who's a history creator who I've followed for ages and absolutely love all of her content. So we're just out here experiencing this amazing trip, and I'm just going to be taking you along on the journey and showing you all the stuff we got up to. I've already had my brain melted by some of the things that we've seen. It's been so amazing. And everyone is so nice as well. Like, so I get really nervous about being in a big group of people. But everyone's just been like really open and friendly and warm. So yeah, really excited about the trip and just so grateful to be here. And I hope you're gonna enjoy it and come along with me. These are just the cutest little pyjamas, by the way. I just got them while I was in Edinburgh. I got them from Uniqlo. I don't know how you say it exactly. But I had my eye on them on the website for ages. And we don't have one of these shops where I live. Then I remembered this one in Edinburgh, so I just ran along there today and I got this and some like lounge pants type things as well. And I'm really happy with them. I think they're so cute. They're like really soft and cozy, and yeah. The next day we headed to Rosslyn Chapel, a place wrapped in centuries of mystery which was made famous by the Da Vinci Code. Built in the 1400s, it was meant to be a Catholic chapel, but what they created is more like a stone encyclopedia of secrets. Every inch of it is carved, not just with saints and angels, but with symbols that don't seem to belong. There are Celtic knots, green men with vines curling from their mouths, and hundreds of tiny plants and flowers carefully sculpted into the stone. This was a time when people didn't have access to printed Bibles, and so the carvings were used to teach and instruct. But here's where it gets strange. Some of the carvings show what looks like aloe vera and even maize or corn, plants that shouldn't have been known in Scotland when the chapel was built, decades before Columbus supposedly brought news of the Americas to Europe. So how did a 15th century Scottish stonemason carve New World plants? Coincidence? Lost knowledge? No one really knows. Then there's the apprentice pillar, a twisting, spiralling masterpiece said to have been carved by a young apprentice after his master went abroad to study. When the master returned and saw how extraordinary the work was, legend says he flew into a jealous rage and killed the apprentice on the spot. They say you can still see both faces carved nearby, the proud pillar and the vengeful master looking on forever. Rosslyn Chapel really is a riddle carved in stone. I didn't know what to expect, but I was totally blown away by this place, and I could have spent hours and hours here looking at every single carving in detail. Next we headed to Melrose Abbey, founded in the 12th century by Cistercian monks to be a place of prayer, work and silence. It may be a ruin now, but it was once a site of devotion and secrets. Buried here, they say, lies the heart of Scotland's great warrior king Robert the Bruce. Apparently his heart was carried on a crusade after his death, but then returned to Scotland where it was interred in the Abbey grounds. And archaeologists have found a small lead casket here containing what's believed to be that very heart. But Melrose keeps darker stories too, including one of the Melrose vampire. And this story comes from the Abbey's early days. The monks wrote of a man, a rich nobleman, who was buried within the Abbey walls. He'd lived a violent life, and after his death, strange things began to happen. Noises at night, shadows moving through the cloisters. The monks believed his restless soul had become a vampire. One night, a brave monk waited for him, struck him down with an axe, and the body was burned outside the walls to end the haunting once and for all. Melrose is stunning, carved with angels and demons, and even a bagpipe-playing pig. Standing there today, you can still feel the centuries pressing close, the air filled with prayers and stories, kings and monsters, all tangled together in the red stone skeleton of Scotland's past. Next, we visited one of my favourite places on this trip, Abbotsford, the home of writer Sir Walter Scott. Scott was a storyteller and a collector of everything curious. He wrote the great romantic novels of Scotland such as Waverley, Rob Roy and The Heart of Midlothian, which actually reshaped how the world saw this country. Before Scott, Scotland was seen as wild and unruly. After him, it became a place you would want to travel to. Walter Scott filled this house with history, swords from Bannockburn, suits of armour, ancient keys and relics from battles long past. In his library he gathered over 9,000 books, including first editions on witchcraft and the occult, old volumes filled with woodcuts and strange testimonies. He even wrote his own book on witchcraft to understand how fear and superstition shaped human lives. And one of the most striking things is how he treated the people around him. He had portraits painted of his servants, which was most unusual. Walking through Abbotsford really feels like taking a walk through Scott's imagination, and you can really get a sense of the man and his curiosity and wonder at the world. I could have spent hours here going through every single item and what I would do to get my hands on this library. The next morning, we took a boat across the loch to reach Lochleven Castle, an island fortress sitting silent in the middle of the water. The castle looks peaceful now, tucked among the reeds and trees, but it's one of the places where Mary Queen of Scots was eventually imprisoned after the events that took place in Craigmillar Castle. In 1567, after years of turmoil and scandal, she was brought here, a queen without power, surrounded by enemies, just 24 years old. Inside these cold stone walls, she was forced to abdicate her throne in favour of her infant son, James. Just looking out of the same windows that Mary Queen of Scots would have looked out when she was in the castle. She was here for just under a year and she eventually escaped, but she was locked up here on this island, and just walking around the castle imagining how she would have felt is quite crazy. It's easy to imagine her pacing the tower, staring out across the water, knowing freedom was so close she could almost touch it, yet completely unreachable. But the story doesn't end there. With the help of young nobleman Willie Douglas, Mary managed a daring escape. On a dark May night in 1568, disguised as a servant, she slipped out of the castle, crossed the same loch by boat and fled into the hills to rally her supporters. For a brief moment, it looked like she might reclaim her throne. History, of course, had other plans, and Mary would never rule again. But standing here, surrounded by water and wind, you can imagine the tension on that night of escape. The loch once had 7 islands, most of them now gone, and for centuries its waters were thought to be sacred. Now it's a peaceful place of birds, waves, and stone ruins.
If you haven't got one, but it's a friendship cup and it's used all over Scotland as a sign of friendship and sharing, and that's a little bit of story about the Queen.
When we first arrived at Glamis Castle, they greeted us in the Scottish way with a dram of whiskey and a bagpipe player. Built in the 15th century, this castle was my favourite of the trip and carried so much history and folklore. There was a ghostly tale of the Earl who was doomed to play cards for eternity. A man who, according to legend, defied the Sabbath and swore he'd gamble until Judgment Day if he wanted to. When the clock struck midnight, the devil himself is said to have appeared and joined the game. And now, on stormy nights, people claim to hear the faint shuffle of cards and murmurs of laughter from a sealed room behind these walls. One of its most haunting and true tales belongs to Lady Janet Douglas. In the 1500s, she was accused of plotting against King James V and of witchcraft, the charge that so often followed women who was simply inconvenient. She was imprisoned, tortured, and burned alive at the stake on Castle Hill in Edinburgh while her young son was forced to watch. I can't stop thinking about her sad tale and the injustice of it all. Her ghost is said to return here, her family home, to the small private chapel where she prays silently among the empty pews. I felt a real sense of melancholy in this chapel, a sense of sadness but also softness. We spent day 4 driving through the Scottish Highlands, miles of raw, astonishing beauty touched by autumn. The light shifted by the minute, 1 minute golden and calm, and the next wild and full of rain. We stopped at Crathie Kirk, the tiny granite church tucked among trees where the royal family worships when they're staying at Balmoral. Then on to Braemar Castle, which wasn't open but was still so lovely to see and looked like something from a storybook. Like I mentioned, this whole tour was with Rabbies, and honestly it couldn't have been more special. They are small group tours, the kind where you actually get to know your driver, who also doubles as a historian and tour guide. You get stories, hidden stops, and places you'd never find on your own. And if you're thinking about taking a Rabbie's trip, you can get 20% off multi-day tours in 2026 with the code folklore26. There are loads of themes and destinations, from history and folklore to whiskey and wilderness. If you want to see Scotland or any other place, this is how. I definitely spoke too soon last time I talked to you, because I had said that I'd never had a supernatural experience, but I was open to it, and also I don't really know if I believe in ghosts or anything. I don't know why I said that. I shouldn't have said that, because yesterday was really crazy. I still don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I'm just going to tell you what happened. So we started off the day, as you will have seen, by going to Lochleven Castle, and that was really great. Obviously we had the rainy Scottish weather starting, but that's to be expected. So it was really cool to see where Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned, and just kind of like walk around and imagine how she was feeling at that time, what her experience would be like in that tower, the escape attempts, all that kind of stuff. And that's how I always feel when I go around historical sites, is if you don't engage with the history, you can just see it as like, yeah, like some crumbly old stones or like a hill or whatever it is. But if you really engage with the history and the story, then it just makes you appreciate it so much more, because you can really like understand the people of history, what they were feeling, what they were experiencing. So I think that's really special. So that was great. So next we went to a place called Stirling Palace, and we didn't have tons of time there, but we still managed to get a bit of a whistle stop tour. You can't take pictures and videos in the building, and because there were other people there, we weren't able to either. I think one of my favourite things that I saw there was a painting of a woman named Dido, and it's quite a famous painting, and it's also quite special because she was a mixed race woman, but her mother was a slave, but her father was like an aristocrat. I don't know if that's the right kind of word, but basically he was like a white man, and he brought her back over and raised her as like an educated woman with all, you know, the skills and talents that a woman at that time would be raised with, but she was always quite separate in the family. And she was painted in this painting at the same level as her cousin, and usually at that time people who weren't white were painted like lower, so that was really interesting and really cool to see. Sorry if I keep moving this camera, I'm having a nightmare with it, so I feel like I just keep appearing in like different framing every time, so I'm sorry. But yeah, then we went to Glamis Castle, which I think was possibly my favourite thing we've done. I'm not sure. It's up there though, because the staff were amazing, like so knowledgeable, enthusiastic, interesting. The castle itself is really cool, and it was just a really nice experience because they treated us to whiskey and books and tea and shortbread and everything, so it just felt really special. And yeah, so this is where the supernatural story begins. So as I say, I've never had any ghostly experiences. I've been on like ghost tours and like different things like that. I've been in like haunted castles, even like Chillingham Castle in Northumberland is supposed to be like the most haunted in Europe. I've been to these places and I haven't felt anything. When people around me have said that they have, I haven't. Like, I just haven't. The first time I actually felt like some vibes was we went to the chapel, and it's a really, really sad story of a woman named Janet Douglas, who was the Lady of Glamis. I'm really sorry, I've had to go to my phone because the camera is just driving me insane. Like every 5 seconds it just stops working. So I've just had to come on here so I can finish the story. So I'm sorry it's shaky and not as good quality. As soon as I went to the chapel, I just got this overwhelming sensation of melancholy. I just felt very sad, and I also felt very chilled. And this was actually one of the only rooms in the house, in the castle, that had heating on. They have to keep it warm because of the paintings in there. So I should have been warm in that room, but I got a chill and I felt really sad. But like nothing sinister, nothing dark or evil, just like sad but sweet sort of thing. And the guide showed us the corner, which is apparently the corner that the ghost of Janet Douglas sits in. So yeah, that was that experience. Then things took a turn for the very, very strange, and I don't even know how to articulate what happened last night. Basically, there was a really bad storm, and the storm caused a power cut at our hotel that we were staying at. It was like a B&B type thing, but it was in the middle of nowhere in the Scottish Highlands. We'd been out all day, obviously. It was really dark, rainy, misty. We pulled up to the hotel and saw that there were no lights on. So yeah, there was a power cut, which obviously doesn't help to begin with. Our phones were on low battery. There was no torches at the B&B, and it was a very like old, interestingly decorated B&B. I feel like in the right environment and the right vibes, it could be like really cozy and have that like rustic, like countryside vibe, quite kitschy, like loads of like old decor and stuff. It would have been like really cute. However, the vibes were just off because obviously we were we'd been on all these ghost tours. We were in that mood. It was stormy. We were kind of like scared because it was so dark. And yeah, we couldn't have any food because obviously the kitchen couldn't be powered. We ended up getting some in the end. We went to the town nearby, but we all just got like really scared of the rooms. My room really freaked me out. I'm sure it was fine, but I just got freaked out because it had a door that led to another door which led to another room, and I don't know, I just really got the heebie-jeebies. And there was loads of weird deco, like little cots and prams and stuff, but like really old-fashioned ones and everything. So obviously we were just getting riled up basically. I ended up sleeping in a room with 3 other girls. I just piled loads of duvets on the floor and slept on them because I was like, I can't sleep alone, I don't want to sleep in that room. And the craziest thing that happened, which I didn't actually tell anyone at the time because I didn't want to freak people out, but this truly happened. All I can tell you is what I experienced. I was standing in the corridor with a couple of other girls, and they were all just like chit-chatting among themselves, and I heard like clear as day, loud in my ear, really closely, a whisper that just said my name. And I was like, what was that? But yeah, I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was just me, like, you know, being tired or overexcited or just like hearing things or whatever. But all I'm telling you is that's what I heard. So after that, I was like, am I hell sleeping alone? So we had like a little slumber party. And we were just like, we need to get out of here. So yeah, after that we were able to just go and get on with the day. But that was that. It was pretty crazy, to be honest. Yeah, that was my experience. So I shouldn't have been like, oh yeah, I'll have a supernatural experience, because this is what happens. But yeah, today some of our plans got cancelled because of the storm. So we've just been mooching around to a little village. We've stopped at some really beautiful photo spots. Even if we couldn't go in some castles, we've taken some photos outside of them, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, but also very sad because it's the last day and I've honestly had the best time ever. So yeah, I will be sad to be going back, but yeah, it's been great, and now I need to get to sleep, so hopefully I didn't spook you too much, and I will see you in the morning. Next, we went to Stirling Castle, sitting right in the middle of Scotland, not just geographically, but historically too. Built on an ancient volcanic rock, for centuries it was the prize everyone wanted to control. The first fortifications here date back to the early Middle Ages, but it was under the Scottish kings of the 12th and 13th centuries that Stirling truly became a royal stronghold. Its position made it vital. Whoever held Stirling held the gateway between north and south.
My daughter heartbroken threw herself off the tower into the rocks below. She said there's no room down there. It's pretty spooky. I didn't know the story. I just went down there and I was like, this isn't right. And I came up and asked one of the guides. I was like, this is good. I know officially they say there's no ghosts, but
Just below the castle lies the field of Bannockburn, where Robert the Bruce defeated the English army in 1314, a turning point in the Wars of Independence. Earlier in 1297, William Wallace had won his own victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge just down the hill, ambushing the English as they crossed the narrow wooden span. The castle was attacked and besieged repeatedly, and each time it fell, it was rebuilt stronger and grander. It was here where Mary Queen of Scots spent her early years, even being crowned here as a baby in 1543.
To come and have an audience with the Queen, Marie de Guise, the mother of Mary Queen of Scots. This is where they were able to come and speak with her. And the way it would work is they would come and stand at the edge of this rug, and they would have to, if they were a man, they would have to bow down. And if they were a lady like myself, they would come up to the edge of the rug, and then they would have to curtsy down like this, right to the ground, with their head down to show respect. And they would actually have to wait like this. And wait. And keep on waiting. until the Queen said that they could rise.
So much of what we see today dates from that time. The Great Hall, the Royal Palace. These interiors are modern reconstructions, but they're based on meticulous research. We've been taught to picture history in shades of grey because time fades paint and light and bleaches colour. But this would have looked more like a jewel box than a ruin, a castle alive with laughter, ceremony and spectacle. Outside, the view stretches for miles. You can see where Scotland's battles were fought, where its kings rode out and where its fate was decided.
I wouldn't say it's my favourite castle I've ever been to.
Yeah, I think it's really cool.
Okay.
I think it's really cool. But obviously, like the stuff in the palaces, like isn't real. It's nice to see how it probably would have been decorated back then with all the bright colours and stuff. Because obviously, when you see real stuff, it's all faded.
Yeah, that is nice to see the colours.
Yeah. Some different things about him. I read one bit that apparently he was really good looking. Oh my god. One bit I read about David Rizzio was that he was very good looking, and then people were worried that like Mary was having a thing with him. But then I saw another guy, and I was reading the book about it, and he said that he apparently was like a hunchback.
Oh.
And he had all these like deformities and stuff.
But is that like a Richard III situation?
I don't know, maybe.
Where the next person just didn't like him?
Yeah, that's what I was getting the sense of. But apparently he was really nice. Everyone liked him a lot, and he was a nice guy. So yeah.
We're back later on, so if you see a lady who fits that description, remember she's the lady you have to curtsy to. You are expected to go all the way down for the Queen. But I do give people a bit of advice as I'm getting older myself. Go low enough to be respectful, but not so low that you can't get back up. It doesn't look very good if you fall over or someone has to come and hold up off the ground. But you must show your respect when the Queen comes by. And even someone as grand as myself, daughter of the 2nd Earl of Argyll, one of the grand ladies of Scotland, I would still have to go all the way down when I'm still able.
We took a trip to Linlithgow Palace, once one of the final royal residencies in Scotland. It stands on the site of an older manor house, transformed over centuries by the Stuart kings into a beautiful example of Renaissance architecture. Kings and queens came here to rest, to hunt, to celebrate, and we've come full circle because it's here in December 1542 that Mary, Queen of Scots, was born. In 1746, during the Jacobite Rising, troops loyal to the Duke of Cumberland set the palace ablaze. The flames gutted it completely. Yet what remains is breathtaking. Soaring walls, arched windows open to the sky, and in the courtyard, the extraordinary fountain. It's crowned by a unicorn carved with angels, mermaids and royal symbols, and when it flowed, it was said to run with wine. Walk through Linlithgow now and you feel those layers of its past. Sunlight pouring into roofless halls where kings once feasted and pigeons nesting where tapestries once hung. The final stop on our trip was Araminta Campbell's weaving studio. I didn't know much about weaving when we got here, and I was truly stunned at the complexity and craftsmanship that goes into it. It takes nearly a week to set up a loom before a single thread is woven. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of threads stretched and wound by hand in perfect tension. Araminta and her team create both traditional and bespoke tartans, and yes, if you have the means, you can create your own tartan.
Which shaft I want to lift up. This then creates my weaving shed that my shuttle and bobbin go through. And then as I take my foot off the treadle and give it a beat here, you'll watch as the whole system clocks round.
They told us about storytelling through tartan, how each colour and line tells a story of a family, place and belonging. This trip was truly one of the best experiences I've had, and I will cherish it forever. The sights we saw were so amazing and the girls were so wonderful, kind and warm. Thank you so much to Jacqueline and Rabbie for having me on this trip, and thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed coming on this journey with me.